I'm going to call the planning commission meeting, and now is it still, yes, thank goodness. Oroville Planning Commission and Historical Advisory Committee to order. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Arkey.
Here.
Commissioner Howland.
Here.
Commissioner Shred.
Here.
Commissioner Jensen.
Here.
Vice Chair Jenkins.
Here.
Chairperson Darling.
Here. If you'll all rise with me to give the Pledge of Allegiance and be patient while I try to stand. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated.
Boy, that is better.
Okay, I guess everybody knows that Don is leaving us. Don, would you like to come and stand up here so I can read this proclamation to you? Well, or stand there, wherever you want.
No, we gotta make her stand over here.
I'd like you to stand here. Huh? And I get to read this. Huh? City of Oroville, proclamation by the Oroville Planning Commission of recognition and appreciation of the city employee Don Nevers. Whereas it is the intention of the Oroville Planning Commission to focus attention on noteworthy individuals, and whereas after many years of dedicated and exemplary service, over 2 tenures, Don Nevers is moving on from her position as Assistant Community Development Director, and whereas Dawn has demonstrated excellence, positivity, and perseverance in carrying out her duties, especially in promoting individual responsibility, community commitment, and involvement through dynamic concerns for the well-being of her employees in our city. And whereas Dawn Nevers has served the city of Oroville and the Planning Commission in a professional, respectful, knowledgeable, and skillful manner with the highest standards of ethics, accountability, dignity, equity, and fairness. Now therefore, I, Carl Durling, Chair of the Planning Commission, in concurrence with all commissioners, do hereby thank Dawn Nevers for her loyal and dedicated service to the city of Oroville. Furthermore, we join her staff and the entire community in wishing her a happy and healthy move to her new position at Butte County. We know the county will receive great value as a result. Signed, Carl Durling, Chair.
I can't thank you guys enough. It's been wonderful working with all of you. So I'm not going to cry, Dave. Thank you guys.
Okay, we have some cookies. We're going to take a little break and get rid of them for me. We'll have a little kind of a mini party, and if anybody wants to do that. Nobody wants any cookies.
They all got their cookies. They're eating their cookies.
Anybody?
I had mine.
Okay.
I'm sure people want to get
Okay.
Connor, cookie?
Huh?
Let's throw it at him.
I can't give you one. I'm sorry.
It's all right. I think I have a cookie in my office somewhere.
Okay. Hearing of non-agenda items. If there's anyone who wants to make a presentation to the Planning Commission on a subject, now's the time to do it. However, we are not able to take any action on it. Generally, it gets referred to staff and takes the process as appropriate. Seeing none, okay. Open the hearing, open the Planning Commission hearing. The hearing procedure is straightforward. You basically, you've got 2 minutes to make your presentation. Staff will make a presentation of the project, whatever it is. Public comment session will be closed when appropriate, and the commission debates and takes action. That's the procedure. Item 1, open the hearing for minor use permit, UP 23-09 for digital display sign at 2959 Lower Wyandotte Road. Staff?
Thank you, Carl, and staff is glad you're back too. This item is a digital display sign at the Southside Community Center. The center, as you know, is one of our most active community centers in town. It's operated by a nonprofit entity, and they are proposing to put a digital display sign up. This is Wyandotte Avenue here. Your Starbucks number 2 is right up here, and the Wyandotte Academy is here. This is the drive up to the Southside Community Center. There's an existing monument sign here announcing the Southside Community Center, and they're proposing to put this digital display sign here right near it. This is the close-up of it, and it's the sign is 11 feet wide at the top, and it's 15 feet high, and it will be a digital display sign with changeable messages. And we have conditions in here for the hours and such. The building department is reviewing the plans right now. The part of this Southside Community Center is in the PQ zone, which does not allow digital display signs. However, since this is a important community center and the rest of the parcel that it's on is zone C2, heavy commercial, the zoning administrator has signed a zoning interpretation that's on page 36 of your packet. Thank you. Allowing it in this case. So staff recommends approval. The engineer was supposed to be here. The applicant, Kevin Thompson, is officiating at a funeral this evening, so he's unable to attend.
That it?
That's it.
Okay. Open a public hearing. I think I already did that. Is anyone want make a presentation, or? I don't see anyone.
There's
No.
no speaker on this item.
Huh?
There's no speaker on this item. No speaker.
Can't hear you.
You have to speak loudly.
No speaker in this item.
What you say?
There's no speaker.
I'll let you interpret.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, we'll close the hearing and turn it over to the commission for discussion or whatever. Any questions? Any questions of staff?
I'm surprised that it's not allowed in a public, quasi-public, because like we have it here at the municipal auditorium, we have the signs. It seems like that, in my mind, is one of the most appropriate places to have the digital display signs. So I didn't realize that it wouldn't automatically be permitted.
Hence the reason for the zoning interpretation in this case.
We should
Love the
probably
interpretation.
change it, yeah.
I appreciate that.
Permanently, yeah. I think it's a great idea. I don't love these signs as off-premise big billboard signs. I love them, though, as something like this. It's exactly perfect thing in my mind for this.
And what they need too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They need to let everyone know what they're offering there.
And they need, I like it because when you're coming in off of, is it Olive Highway, as you head toward the signal light, it's hard to tell where, you know,
Yes,
but with the sign there, you know right away.
where the
Almost-
driveway.
Almost when you turn off of Olive Highway. And that's really good. That'll save a lot of people making U-turns and, you know, so anyway, I think it's really good.
And I was just gonna say, yeah, that this, you know, this item has been to commission before, and it looks like they've addressed all of the concerns that were brought up the first time, so it's,
Good. I'll close the hearing. We'll wait for a motion and a second.
I move to approve item 2 as stated on the agenda.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Call the roll. Oh, that's right.
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 0 nos.
Okay, it's passed. All right. Go to item 3, I'll open the hearing on Bliss Fusion use permit for outpatient services. Staff?
Yes, this is a use permit application for hydration services and vitamin injections intravenously. Because it falls under the classification of outpatient services, where medical treatments are occurring, it triggered a use permit. All of the personnel are going to be licensed medical practitioners. The project is in the multi-tenant building on Oro Dam Boulevard behind KFC and Arby's. So there's a vacant spot or two. There are also other medical users in that building and a realty office. Zoned MXC, and the site plan was not in your packet, but it's on the screen now as to what they want to do with the interior of the building. And so staff recommends approval, and the applicant, Selena Weber, and her husband are here to answer any questions and maybe to make a short presentation.
Okay. All right. Right here.
Yeah? Oh. So, I notice a few faces that I recognize. I'm Selena Weber. I've lived here most of my life. I've been a nurse here in the community for over 13 years. Health and wellness is super important to me, and I feel like we could utilize this in our community. So a lot of what I'm doing is hydration, vitamins, all the therapies that you would need to live a healthy lifestyle. I think it would be a good addition to the building that we're in right now. The dermatologist is there, Quest Diagnostic is there. I think it would just be a good asset for our community to have access to these kind of services. So,
Thank you. Any question of the applicant? Thank you.
okay, thanks, guys.
Okay. Any discussion of the planning commissioners? Any questions amongst ourselves?
yeah, I just want to bring up one thing on here that one of the reasons that we ask for a use permit in the MXC zone, it just looking at our documentation, is a concern about, for this kind of use that involves a clinic, has to do with making sure that medical waste is disposed properly. It's something that's not included in any of the conditions. I'm sure there's no intent to do anything improper, but just to protect the city, we might want to add a condition, either adding it to the waste disposal condition, I think it was number 14, or as a separate one, just to ensure the proper disposal of medical waste from the site.
Staff, any comment on that?
No comment.
We need some language then to suggest some language, or do you want to suggest some language?
I can suggest some language. Medical waste generated at the facility will be disposed of in best practice manner, something like that.
Okay. That condition's been added then? Any discussion? Ready for a motion and a second? Oh, wait. On the description of the project, it says Bliss Fusion use permit. And then the next paragraph says, consider approving minor use permit. So what is it? Is it a minor use permit being approved or a use permit?
It is a minor use permit because there is no CEQA involved.
Okay, so the motion needs to deal with a minor use permit then.
Correct.
Okay, ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairperson, there are no speaker on this item.
What?
There are no speakers.
There are no speaker on this item.
I have a hard time hearing down there.
She was just reiterating that there are no public speakers on this item, no public comments.
Yeah, there's nobody.
Correct.
There's nobody here.
Nope.
Yeah.
No, we
So,
still have to state
anyway,
it
we're ready
for
for
the
a
record.
motion.
Exactly.
I will move to approve.
And we have a motion to approve a
minor use
second?
permit.
Second.
To clarify, we're moving to approve the minor use permit with the addition to item 14 of the conditions.
Yeah.
Yes, please, thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right. Vote. I hit it.
Motion carries with 6 yes and 0 no's.
Staff, you'll take care of the, whatever the application is, it confusion between use permit or minor use permit, right?
Yes, I already made a note on
Okay.
there.
All right, thank you. That's it. Yeah. Good luck.
No.
All right. Next item, item 4. I'll open the hearing on it. It's a Feather River Ranch subdivision, including general plan amendment, zoning change, variance, tentative subdivision map, and an override of the Airport Land Use Commission inconsistency determination. All of those items are on this application and this agenda at this time. Staff?
Yes, thank you. Before you is a proposal for a single-family market-rate residential subdivision called Feather Ranch. And the subdivision map is there before you. Does anybody need that to be enlarged? Okay, the application is to subdivide a single 45-acre, single parcel that's zoned Airport Business Park into 172 lots, averaging 7,400 square feet and zoned R1 at a density of 3.8 homes per acre. These are large lots, larger than the minimum 5,000 square feet for an R1 zone, and it's very similar in size to the existing Caia Vista subdivision next door. If the project is approved as Chairperson Durling has said, there will be a general plan amendment, there will be a zoning change, there will be a tentative subdivision map to be approved, there will be an override of the Airport Land Use Commission's inconsistency determination. I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. And lastly, there would be a variance because our ordinances are word for word the same as the requirements in the Airport Land Use Consistency Plan, the Butte County Airport Land Use Plan. So those would be all the actions that would need to be taken. Because this is a greenfield site, because it needs rezoning, because it's in the airport overlay zone, it is a discretionary permit and it triggered CEQA, so it did trigger an environmental review. Since there were likely significant impacts, that triggered an environmental impact report. So the EIR was done, the draft environmental impact report, the notice of preparation, the whole process was followed, and it identified three significant environmental effects, significant and unavoidable. And the three are inconsistency with the airport land use consistency plan.
Look,
For the plan for density. That becomes technically a safety question because it is in the B1 and B2 overflight zones. And I have to thank Connor for doing most of the original drafting of this staff report. So the site itself, the proposed site, is here in red, and the airport is here. This is Highway 162 right here. And you can see the A zone, which is where aircraft always fly, the B1 zone, and then the B2 zones, which have different safety determinations where certain densities of development are allowed in these different zones. Nothing is allowed to be developed in an A zone. In a B1 zone, a residential development is a maximum density of one residence or one home per 10 acres. In the B2 zone, it is one home per 5 acres. So this project, as I said before, is proposing 3.8 homes per acre. This had to go before the Airport Land Use Commission. It did so in September, and they determined, rightly so, that it was inconsistent with the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. That's the word I was trying to remember. However, the City Council does have the authority to override that determination if it determines that there are overriding considerations or more important considerations. A second impact that was significant and unavoidable was noise from ground activity. This is a very rural area, very quiet area, and so the increase in noise from the project, it would exceed 5 decibels increase. Still, after the project, it is still equal to rural ambient noise levels. So, and it will be less than the 65 decibels, which triggers other significance thresholds. So this is, staff considers this to be just a technical significance, and it has no, should have no impact on the health or citizen concern of in any way. The third is vehicle miles traveled caused by the traffic that would be generated. Anytime there's more than 100 vehicle trips per day, the state thresholds, until we have different thresholds here, determines that a project would be significant. The impact would be significant for the additional greenhouse gases that it would generate. In a rural area such as Oroville or Butte County, there's no way to mitigate that effect effectively because in urban areas you have transit, you have bicycle lanes, you have pedestrian travel lanes. None of these are practicable here in Butte County. So that is a significant and unavoidable effect as well. Is Stoltley on yet?
No.
Okay. So today, the Planning Commission has to weigh the relative need for market rate housing against the potential safety issues of developing near the airport. So I'll go over a couple factors that are in the staff report that would be affecting this decision that the commission is asked to make. First of all is the need for housing. We all know, we have it drummed into us all the time that the state is short on housing. There's a critical shortage of housing. We also know that from the certified housing element that you folks have reviewed a few months ago, that Oroville needs market rate housing. We have an abundance of affordable housing in our city. So our goal, our RENA number, is 375 units before the year 2030 of market rate or above market rate housing. This project would provide about 40% of that need, which would meet an important local need and a mandated statewide goal for housing development. One of the things we also all know is that when the hospital gets going and we have the 500 or 600 new highly skilled medical folks, they are going to need housing and they're going to want market rate housing. So this would help fill that need. The second factor is that the airport is an economically important asset of the city. It brings many jobs to our two industrial areas there, Lineman College and Graphic Packaging and a number of others that are major employers. So that property tax and rental income and jobs and payroll are also very significant. Now those are outside the fence of the airport. Inside the fence, there are aircraft which bring property tax, there's fuel sales, there's a fixed base operator that's doing repair, helicopter and aircraft repair. So the concern that you have to weigh is the extent to which you think this project might interfere with airport operations and or the ability for the airport to expand. That is also in our sponsor assurances that we rely on in order to get FAA funding for things like runway improvements and other facility enhancements at our airport and maintenance items. So staff has looked at that in quite a lot of detail. Couple of items, the aircraft taking off on runway 2 to the north, what's the frequency of aircraft taking off? They are already advised in our AirNav information for pilots to veer left as you take off north off of runway 2, which is right here, heading this way. You're advised to veer left away from developed areas because a lot of Thermalito is developed here, so pilots are advised to turn left or veer left. This project would not be much of a change for that. Accidents from aircraft flying overhead would be minimal. The data, which we are lucky in 2001 to get significant information about the actual number of flights, the operations at our airport, and those are in the table on page 71 of your packet. The calculation by staff is that daily you'd probably get about 2 aircraft flying over this subdivision every day if they're going straight out. Most aircraft follow the pattern, the left-hand pattern, which goes over this undeveloped area. And so planes that are doing touch and goes, planes that are entering from outside, et cetera, typically get into this pattern, and does not, this subdivision will not affect that very much. It might affect it a little bit. So staff's overall conclusion is that the effect on airport operations and safety will be nominal, but that is for the Planning Commission to weigh and to decide. Noise, aircraft noise. This project would generate noise, and the noise contours that were done for the airport show that this subdivision is outside of the 55 decibel noise contour, which is a significant noise contour for the airport. See right here, it's outside of that noise contour for the noise that jets and other aircraft would make taking off and landing. We also will be requiring the homes to be built so that the maximum interior noise level would be, ambient noise level would be 45 decibels. So that typically means thicker windows, it means venting in the attics that are different so that it deflects noise so that it doesn't go into the building. So those types of design features will be required as a condition there in the conditions. And also all homeowners would be advised that they would be living near an airport. You may or may not, when you've bought your property, got the Alquist Priolo and the other safety notifications that you signed off on. If you live within 2 miles of an airport, you have to sign off that you're aware of that and that there might be noise and safety and other concerns. So those are the things that will occur should this subdivision get approved and built. Also, of late, we heard just this weekend, the County Planning Commission this morning had a subdivision on their agenda here, which is north of 162. This is 18th right here going up. So, and this is Biggs. So there was a proposal for a subdivision with some smaller lots. I think it was 110 parcels with some smaller lots than this project, which is proposed here. The county staff recommended denial based on the fact that part of this was under the B2 overflight zone. So the county did almost, well, they didn't do CEQA, they didn't analyze it any further, they simply recommended denial, and the Planning Commission did follow that recommendation today. So that project is denied this morning. Similar project, similar issues, little different location. So that's something you should be aware of. This project will be consistent with the general plan if the zoning change and variance are approved. The general plan does require consistency with the airport land use compatibility plan. So if the council overrules the inconsistency and the general plan amendment is done and the zoning change is done and the variance is done, then the inconsistency with the general plan will be dealt with. One of the open questions has to do with parkland dedication requirement. Is Staltley on yet? No. Okay.
No.
The requirement for this project is 2.5 acres because it's a 45-acre project. They have a 1 acre portion of this property that is set aside for wetland mitigation. Right here on the northeast of the property. And there are discussions started with the Feather River Park and Recreation and Park District as to whether the district would like to acquire or own and manage this property. That is not yet determined. It's not yet decided. Those discussions have just begun on that, not concluded. The 2.5 acres would be either land dedication, which there's not enough within this proposed subdivision, or in lieu fee, which would be determined by the market value of the property and such. The thing that we did do for the Ruddy Creek project was they had Lot A, which was over a couple acres, and Feather River Park District did accept ownership of that as a park. It's down by Ruddy Creek. It's to the west or the east, and there were conditions that a certain number of housing units would be built, and there would be pathways built and benches and things like that installed before the Feather River Park District accepted the property. So that was an example of what happened. We don't know what will happen with this project. We received one comment letter prior to tonight's meeting. I'm assuming you have all seen that and or read that. From Kathy Brazil, who is a resident of the area, Biggs Avenue, right at Ruddy Creek. So, and her comment had to do with traffic and mitigation measures and such, all of which we believe have been addressed in the DEIR. So attachments in this staff report include the tentative subdivision map application, the DEIR and the FEIR, the final environmental impact report, the mitigation monitoring and reporting plan. We incorrectly stated that that was table ES1 in the final environmental impact report. It's actually the last attachment in your packet there. It's at pages 489 to 505. And that's essentially a checklist of the mitigation measures that have to occur, whether they be biological or water or construction, et cetera, et cetera. The CEQA, because there are significant and unavoidable impacts, there have to be findings and a statement of overriding considerations. That draft is in your packet. There is an engineer's report where he's evaluated the tentative subdivision map and has essentially does not have any exceptions. One of the things to note on this is that 22nd Street, which is along the western boundary of the subdivision, will be abandoned. The city is not interested in building it necessarily, and so there won't be a street developed on the west side of this project. It'll just be fenced and there'll be open space behind those homes. The Feather Avenue, Biggs Avenue, and 20th Street will be improved and completed, typically with full paving in the street and then curb gutter sidewalk on the side of the housing development. You also have draft conditions of approval, and you have several resolutions that cover the general plan amendment, the TSM, the EIR certification, the variance, et cetera, et cetera. So all of the items would have to go to the city council upon the planning commission's recommendation, except for the variance. The variance does not have to go to council. The planning commission can decide the variance itself. If the planning commission decides to approve the variance, it would be subject to the city council approving the project at a later date. So upon the planning commission's recommendation, the project would go to the city council for action. If the council determined it wanted to override the Airport Land Use Commission's inconsistency determination, there would be a 45-day comment period in which the Airport Land Use Commission and the state Division of Aeronautics would be invited to comment. You see that the Division of Aeronautics has already commented. They have recommended that the project be approved at density levels allowable within the Airport Land Use Commission. So we do have the EIR consultant, Scott Friend, here in person to answer any questions. and I'm seeing that we do not yet have applicant in attendance. Staff recommends,
That's it?
is that enough?
Okay, any questions of staff by the planning commissioners?
Yeah, what do they recommend?
Yeah, please restate what the staff recommended.
Staff
record.
recommends approval
Item.
of all of the resolutions and such. Airport Business Park. Back in 2009, when our general plan was adopted, before it was updated in 2015, that whole area north of the airport, north of 162, was zoned Airport Business Park, all that vacant land. That was under the then expectation that biotechnology and technology and such would be good economic development projects to attract. And in my experience, every single jurisdiction in California set aside land for biotechnology and technology. So I think there's a couple hundred acres there for Airport Business Park, and it would take 100 years to fill that with technology park and such. Staff would not recommend approving any projects closer than this. This is 4,000 feet off the end of the runway, so we would not be recommending any subdivisions or housing projects any closer to the airport than this.
Yeah, that zoning would have been back when cities or businesses leaving the city were still interested in locating in California, but that's not really the case anymore as we've been seeing. So yeah, it's going to sit unused if it remains in its current designation.
What are the plans at the airport? How big can the airport get? Will there be more flights? Is this like gonna stay at this level?
The airport, I haven't seen the master plan, but it is a 6,000-foot runway, which is quite significant. It allows jets to land and take off.
Business jet.
Business jets, yeah. Up to Gulfstream 5s, which hold 18 passengers, something like that. Also, it's dependent on the strength of the tarmac that the runway is, what the weight loads that it can handle. The 1500 or 1510 form indicates that there's probably about 30,000, and I'm going to do an educated guess because I used to manage the Yolo County Airport, which is quite similar to this one. About 30,000 operations per year, which is more than the count that's here by probably a factor of 5 or 6. The reality is that there are fewer operations in airports, municipal airports like this than that, but the capacity for the airport to expand is probably closer to 60 or 70,000 flights per year. That will, of course, depend on market. It will depend on the attractiveness of this airport to aircraft. There is a slow decline in private aircraft owners, single family. It's the same situation. It's the baby boom. We're all getting old, and fewer of us fly, and not a lot of young people are buying, small airplanes. There is an increase in business jet activity. So business jet activity should be increasing at 1 or 2% per year consistently for a while. The other factor is that this airport was used by the helicopter fleet that was helping with the fire response. So in emergencies, this airport gets used, Chico Airport gets used, a lot of other airports get used, but this one had a fleet of probably 8 or 10 helicopters that were fueled every day and take off every day and go assist with the fire, the emergency efforts. We have been screened by PG&E for possible use as a headquarters for to help dismantle and/or put electrical poles and wiring up.
A training facility.
Training facility. But that has not happened. So there are opportunities at the airport for expansion, and the capacity is there to do so. It's going to be a subject of the market forces. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I was also wondering, in layman's terms, what's the sound impact to the residents who would be at this location between business jets and the commercial jets? Like, are commercial jets like 4 times as loud? Or, I lived within a mile of SeaTac on Vashon Island, so I'm very familiar with the sound and the flight patterns changing. And so I'm just wondering, this was a big SeaTac airport. So how much quieter are these business jets, or are they kind of just as loud as or can anyone answer that?
The noise that a jet makes varies by the age of the jet, the power of the jet, how many engines it has, but they do make significant noise on takeoff. There are noise requirements for jets to keep them quieter and such. This airport could handle a 727 or a 737, but is never likely to do so except in an emergency landing. Most of the jets would be, I think we have one jet based here, maybe, and so they'll be flying in, for business purposes. They used to fly in apparently when there was more activity here by PG&E, was it?
PG&E, Sierra Pacific Industries, Pre-Zero, and Graphic Packaging all have company jets. But it's not a daily occurrence that they fly in. It's irregular.
And my last one is, our flight patterns set, like you said, there's 2 going north that would be heading north over this development. How that can just change easily, or is that, how do flight patterns get changed once you have a development there?
One could change the AirNav advice to pilots and mention that this is a new subdivision going in, to veer left to avoid that subdivision. There's already that recommendation in there. Of course, pilots are pilots, and there's a lot of pioneers out there that will do what they want. So there's no guarantee.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, is the applicant here? No applicant?
Nope.
No presentation by our famous environmentalists? No. Okay, well, I'll close the public hearing
Hold on,
then.
I think we probably have a comment card.
I don't see anything here.
Mr. Chairperson, there are no speaker on this item.
Doesn't it come up on here if there's a speaker?
Not public speakers.
Yeah. they would
Public
have to get-
speakers turn in blue speaker cards.
What?
Public speakers turn in blue speaker cards. There are no speakers for this item.
Okay, I'm talking about off-site.
No.
No.
Mr. Chairperson, we do not take speakers electronically.
Oh, okay. Okay, then I'll close the public hearing. Turn it over to commission for discussion and motion. And now, does the staff want a motion, individual motion for each resolution? Or one motion for each resolution and then a separate approval for the variance, or just handle it all in one motion?
You could handle it all in one motion as agendized.
Okay, so whoever makes the motion, make sure that you mention each resolution number. I think that'll be the safest way to do it.
Mr. Chairperson, you can do that, but your other option is just to approve as agendized to make it easy for the person making the motion.
What she said.
Same thing Don said.
Individually, but it'd be easier if we just
Yeah,
easier to just do it.
I don't know, I'm old school. If you've ever gotten into, a staff in a lawsuit and not have the fact that the individual resolution was specifically adopted, it makes it difficult. And so I'm old school. You can do whatever you want, commissioners, but if I were gonna make the motion, I would make the motion to include each individual number.
Well, Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion there?
No,
No, okay.
of course.
The one resolution that is up to the Planning Commission exclusively is item 4 there, the approving the variance.
Right.
If you do that separately, you can do the entire rest as a recommendation to the city council.
That's what's gonna be my next thing, is make sure that we treat the variance as an approval of the planning commission. So, anyway, with all of that, if somebody wants to take a stab at,
Well, I have a question. On the one comment card, they talked about traffic flows. The staff feels necessary to have a traffic study on 162 and 18th or 20th.
Push the button, yeah.
They can do it.
All right, Scott Friend with Ecor Consulting. Traffic study was done as part of this project. The draft EIR, there should be a whole big section in there. I don't know what pages they are. That big, exactly, that big thing right there. Sorry about that. Keeps your table propped up, maybe. So there was a full traffic study for this project that included both of those streets. I think the commenter, when I read the letter this evening, was looking at maybe a bigger area, and that would be up to the city if they wanted to do that. But for this project, all of 20th Street, 18th, Oro Dam Boulevard, Biggs, Feather, they were all included in a traffic study.
yeah,
in
and the
EIR.
intersections.
All of intersections as well,
and-
absolutely.
And turnings.
There were turning determinations,
Yep.
there were mainline determinations, and all those streets were there.
Yeah, it was a very thorough.
And it's, sorry, conclusions of the study were what?
Sure. The study identified that the traffic meets all the standards, with the exception of 20th Street and 162, where a left turn lane would be installed to accommodate the extra volume. The trick in all of this is that in the state of California, CEQA requires VMT analysis, which is vehicle miles traveled. So in the old days, we used to do, is it an A or a B or a C or a D, a level of service analysis. Nowadays, we still do that because it's beneficial for your staff to understand how the streets are going to function.
Right.
But from a VMT perspective, other than the fact that it's, with all due respect, it's out there. So by definition, you're going to need to travel into town. The study said, hey, listen, put in the left turn lane, traffic's taken care of.
And
So were these looked at, is this based on like commute hour times or, is that even considered in?
No, that's a good question. It's the AM and PM peak hours, which
Right.
are the morning commute and the afternoon commute.
Okay,
Yeah, that's what it's based off.
all right. So the EIR found it
With the-
adequate with the number of, you're gonna have what is it, 172 homes? So what is that, basically double that, 300 and?
Just use rough estimate of 10 trips per house, it's just a nice round number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
With the installation of the turn pocket, there would be no impact.
but signals not needed or anything like that? Okay.
And then just to clarify, when we're talking about the turn lane, you're talking about from 20th Street southbound to West Oro Dam eastbound, right?
I believe, yes. Yeah, if I'm thinking correctly, so.
You got to think like a geographer like I
South
do.
and to the- that's exactly-
That'd be-
Absolutely.
Yeah, so left.
That'd be
If you're
turning,
traveling south on 20th.
turning east, or would you turn?
No, it's, the way it's set up is if you're traveling
Southbound
south on
20th to
20
turn.
and want to make a east turn on Oro Dam, there's a proposed or required left turn lane.
That's exactly right.
Required left turn lane.
It would, yeah, if you're driving south, you'd turn left
Yeah, that
into
gives,
town.
that gives really important is controlled stacking vehicles too.
Does-
It's not just.
Does 18th have one right now? No. Is there any
No.
left turn lane there at all?
No.
On either, not on
No.
either street?
Nope,
Nope. Just two lanes.
Okay.
no. Any other?
No, as I recall, the letter writer was asking or expressing concern about traffic on Biggs Avenue, but my understanding is that Biggs Avenue is not going to be formally connected to this particular subdivision, correct? That they were talking about Biggs Avenue as it continued after 18th Street, as I was interpreting it, but there's no proposal to connect this Biggs Avenue with the Biggs Avenue over on the other side of 18th, so that's,
No.
I guess, making sure that kind of
In fact,
matches
it's
what.
not even in the city's traffic study. It's not even talked about in the city's, future, what's going to happen in the future thing.
And I would admit that, that Biggs Avenue as a travelway would be a concern, but if it's not being connected that way, and I don't know if there's just a general idea that if anybody decided to propose anything along Biggs there, that we would have them not connect Biggs as a traffic way between 18th and 20th, and I don't know if there's a way to just say that's going to be our policy for the future, or.
I think Biggs Avenue connecting from 18th to 20th was in the Cala Vista subdivision, that phase 3, I believe it was, 2 or 3, to develop it at that time. But since that phase has not been developed, there's been no development up that roadway.
I can't see anybody wanting to use Biggs as a cutoff road. You're driving slow or you're going around.
people-
It doesn't go anywhere.
No, no.
I have a question. The Airport Land Use Commission, did they rule on the county subdivision that was just
Yeah.
recommended against?
Yes, they did. They also deemed it inconsistent.
Same ruling as for this one? Okay.
Any other discussion? Questions of staff? Questions of the applicant? I'll close the
I
public.
think- I think I'll just say one more thing.
Yeah.
When I first moved to Oroville, I lived in Cali Vista subdivision, Cali Vista 1, when it was brand new for 10 years. And, I was kind of surprised when I first saw the map for this and the flight over, the overflight zone, that where I lived was a B1 area. And I guess I was told that it wasn't at the time that it was developed, but I was surprised because, boy, I don't remember very often hearing or seeing aircraft flying overhead in the neighborhood, and if we did, that it wasn't. I don't remember it ever being noisy or nuisance. So much noise that it was a nuisance. I mean, it was over 10 years. I guess I can't say it was never once, but it's not something that sticks into my mind as a memory of that. This is a problem with living in this neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, with the Vista de Oro right there, and then the Linkside, or what it's called now.
Linkside.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're pretty much the same distance.
Yeah.
I mean, not over the flight path, but, any complaints for noise from those guys?
None that we've ever received.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the last thing I want to say is that as a community researcher, economics and demographics, I can absolutely attest to the shortage of market rate housing in this area. I wish we had more proposals for market rate housing in this area. If we did, then I would probably be more questioning of a project like this, but I've been on commission for 1.5 years now. This is the first one I've seen. So
There's not a lot of land.
So I guess I'm just saying that I'm absolutely, I'm in favor of the statement of overriding consideration that that housing is needed in the community, and we don't see a lot of opportunities for it, so.
Is the applicant also going to be the developer? Are they just getting the zoning and will they pass it on to someone else? Or are they going to take it all the way through?
The applicant has suggested, not committed, that he would likely get the entitlements and then find another developer to develop the project.
Does that usually happen?
Very
That's the
firm.
way it goes.
That's very common.
Usually
And
how it is.
and all the intentions that go with the project that we understand stay with it once it's passed on to a developer.
Yes, if you look at the project conditions, and we did this for Ruddy Creek, there are some design requirements in those conditions that certain colors would be approved, that there'd be more than 3 different home styles.
Yep.
That no
I saw
2
that.
homes would be located at the same location, that there'd be varied roof designs and such. So all of those things are in these proposed conditions.
And stay with it. Okay.
Yeah, and the most important one is the noise, the structural requirements for noise mitigation. And that's really puts the onus on the staff to make sure that the builder that comes in is aware of all this, okay? When I developed, I did both. I carried it all the way through to construction of the homes. Probably 25% of my projects were that way, but most of them were going through the process of rezoning and creating the mitigations and all the rest of that, and then finding builders to come in. So, and that's the most typical. So, I had one question on the airport thing. In the EIR, and you mentioned staff about planes taking off to the north, making a curve. Is that a requirement that's enforced on pilots, or is that just a suggestion, or does the pilots even know about it, or how is that done?
In the movie Under the Tuscan Sun, there's a scene where green light means go, a yellow light means go faster, and a red light means just a suggestion. It is just a suggestion to pilots. There would be no, there'd be no enforcement.
I mean,
Yes.
somehow?
Yeah.
You have a new pilot comes in and lands and you go visit somebody. Like my nephew, my niece and her husband own a plane in
Yeah.
Utah. And they come and visit and land there. Are they informed somehow that when they take off, they should do that?
Yes, there are a couple, 3 ways in which pilots learn about unfamiliar airports before they fly into them. The VFR or instrument rating, there's different depending on what you're doing, but there's an AirNav notice to pilots that is published for every single airport in the country. And the airport managers indicate in that AirNav alert where the trees are, where the hazards are, how long the runways are, what the weight limits are, if there's fuel available, and how to fly, how to enter and leave the
Okay,
airport.
so there is a system for informing
Yeah,
them.
it's quite a thorough system, and pilots generally do adhere to it.
My experience near SeaTac on Vashon Island is that they change it and do whatever they want. There's absolutely no control and nothing you can do
Isn't that
about
all-
it.
That's what.
It didn't ruin the island, though. I mean, even though we were close and this was huge planes, when I first moved, I thought, ooh, that is kind of a lot. But then pretty soon you don't hear it. And it was rural, but it was.
Get used to it.
We got used to it. But they changed their pattern. We tried, everybody tried to get them to not use so much, I don't know, gas at the beginning or come in quieter. No, they don't care about any of that.
No.
They got a cargo full of people. I think that's all they are concerned with, but.
So is that the main runway? Is that the long one that would go directly over this subdivision?
Yes, 2 and 20, at 20 degrees north and at 200 degrees south. The prevailing winds are from the south. So most, if there's any wind at all, most takeoffs and landings occur to the south and from the north.
Right.
So you'd be landing from the north and taking off to the south most of the time. That's part of the percentages there that were calculated there on page 71.
So if a business wanted to come in that, say, wanted to use a 737 aircraft,
Probably
Would
not
this have any-
recommended because of the weight limits
the
of
weight,
the runway.
so the one runway will not handle the weight of that plane?
Generally not, yeah, it's not rated for that.
Okay, so the biggest plane is rated for, although it's long enough, it
Yeah.
would be just a commuter jet.
Yes.
Okay.
You're not gonna have a 747 come and land.
Not on purpose, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion or anything? What I'd like to do is make a motion for the variance. Let's get that out of the way, and then a motion for the other three resolutions. And I request that you mention the numbers, but you don't have to. So I'm ready for a motion and a second on the variance.
I'll make a motion to approve variance number 23-01.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Adopting the
Okay,
resolution.
we have a motion and a second for approval of
I'm sorry, is that adopting the resolution?
Yes.
Okay. Which would be resolution number
Yes,
P
adopting
20
resolution number P2303-16 to approve variance number 23-01.
There you go. Okay,
You want all the numbers, okay, we'll give you all the
Or
numbers.
say approve as agenda sized.
Motion carries with 6 yes and 0 no.
okay, I'm ready for a motion on the other three resolutions. And if you can repeat the numbers if you want.
Trying to find the numbers. Where's the numbers?
Record. I'll move to approve resolutions number 2314, 15, and 13 as agendized.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ready to vote?
Motion carries 6 yes and 0 no.
Okay. Anybody want to take a break? Now's the time to do it if you want.
Are there any cookies left?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yep, there's
cookies.
a lot of cookies.
Anybody want a cookie?
If somebody can grab me a peanut butter one on the right there.
He wants a
Yeah.
peanut butter one,
No,
yeah.
definitely peanut butter. I'm a peanut butter guy.
Okay, he does want to use the restroom, so maybe take a little break.
Thank you.
Was that the last item, or we have another item?
We have one more.
Where is it at? 'Cause
Why does the airport not?
I hate this.
Hiding all the way near the end.
Would you say?
I don't like these double-sided, it's
Listen to all the
terrible.
100 pages.
Hey, look,
Do they like the development, airport people, or do they
Where's
not?
it?
they're always against anything that's in that slate zone.
Because it will control them, and then they'll get complaining people.
If there's an accident and they are supporting it, they get sued.
Okay,
If
it
there's
just
an
makes
a-
it all more complicated.
Yeah, and if there's an accident and they said, no, we didn't want to do it, it protects them.
Okay.
That's the basic what's going on.
Okay, I was trying to
Let me talk to you about
figure that out, because there's nothing there.
No? No.
Oh, my God. Where's your sense of
No, it's,
adventure?
the airport, ALEC plan itself talks about 3,000 feet.
I probably touched something.
Okay, if you read the EIR.
Yeah.
Well, the project's
I do my
4,000
wife's
feet
phone, take
away,
it.
and that's why I didn't have a
Something
problem.
like that.
It's terrible.
They're like, what are you doing? I think it's fun.
Okay, where are we? What agenda?
Al fresco dining.
Huh?
My favorite, this is my
Oh, yeah.
favorite one. Al
This one.
fresco dining. I know. This is one I'm opinionated about, but not so much. Yeah, you should have a lot of
I can't
pages.
find the,
Good luck, it took me forever.
We'll just get rid of all the stuff we just did.
It's page 4, Carl.
huh?
Page 4, very,
But it starts on page 516, the al fresco dining,
oh,
if that's what you mean, where it starts. Oh, but you gotta do all the beginning stuff.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Page 4.
Number 5.
Yeah, and city council gets these all on an iPad.
Oh, that was all,
well, we ain't there
given
yet.
to us on the,
Yes, I
website.
know, I did look at it, I printed some,
I did too,
but
I had it somewhere. Okay,
no, we don't have,
We gotta wait for Warren.
we don't have Warren.
oh, okay,
He took a real break.
good.
What's the Wi-Fi password? Jackie?
I just gave it to you
No, you did. Thank you.
because it popped up on my phone when you
Tried.
When I was in the 3rd grade in a little school in Kerman, west of Fresno, they asked for volunteers to work in the kitchen. So I volunteered. I didn't know that they were gonna serve peanut butter cookies. And that's what got me started on peanut butter cookies, and I've been a peanut butter
They
cookie
are a good cookie.
since the 3rd grade.
Kerman's one of the few towns left that has its own telephone.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Kerman?
I didn't even know,
Yep.
really use telephone companies.
Kerman is on the way.
You know where Kerman is,
On the way to Fireball.
yeah?
Have a little go-kart racetrack there back in the day. I used to go there all the time, go through Fireball. Yep, good old Kerman.
Kerman, California. One of my hometowns.
She probably thought they
I texted her. For the record, I beat your dad. Because I've never beat you before.
Connor, do you miss this? You miss all of this?
He wants to be here.
It's good. It's good to see everybody. Change of scenery, change of pace.
You
Not
look
our
older.
super formal planning commission down here at the city of Lake Forest. It's nice and relaxing.
Get a little break with us.
We have cookies here.
Exactly.
Okay, are we ready? We're all here? Okay, we're on to item 5. Open the hearing. It's consideration of zoning code amendment ZC 2302. And, there's a whole bunch of numbers on this one. Good, Liz. Anyway, staff, you want to make your presentation?
Yes, I will dive on into it. So, good evening, commissioners. It's good to see all of you. This is the consideration of our al fresco dining ordinance or outdoor dining, whichever you want to call it. We went al fresco because it sounds a little nicer than outdoor dining, but the term can be used interchangeably. So tonight I'll just make a really quick presentation since we've been here for quite a bit, but I'll try and make it quick. Jackie, screen sharing is not working.
Is that it?
There we go. We're working. Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. So you should have on your screen the presentation for alfresco dining. We'll just go real quick into it. So currently, The city does not have regulations, standards, and processes for approving alfresco dining areas. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the city did do a program for a COVID-19 temporary use permit. This was a no-cost permit for our business owners to propose outdoor dining and outdoor business operations. It was meant to be a very temporary setup, so there weren't really any permanent improvements proposed by many of our business owners. With the COVID-19 emergency now over, we're seeing a lot more inquiries from our business owners to have outdoor dining. In addition, as many of you know, we are going through our rebranding phase for Oroville and trying to highlight our outdoor areas. And, outdoor dining has become really popular following the pandemic. And it's just something that staff felt was time for the city to jump onto it. So right now, the intent of this ordinance is to allow alfresco dining on a permanent basis and streamline the approval process by providing clear design standards, submittal requirements, and review procedures. Without having those outline regulations and standards, we would see a wide variety of proposals from business owners and restaurant owners. So this kind of just sets a benchmark of expectations. What are the city's expectations and what the applicant can expect from the city in terms of processing their application? So we're proposing to add section 17.12.120 to the Oroville Municipal Code, just dealing with our alfresco dining and setting up those standards and review process. What's being proposed, to make it simple, we're looking at two different versions of alfresco dining. One would be sidewalk dining. This would be sidewalk dining in the public right-of-way, either utilizing the existing sidewalk or expanding the sidewalk into on-street parking to accommodate a dining area. This is proposed to only be allowed in two specific areas within our downtown Oroville area, and that'll be detailed in a picture later on. This would primarily be focused within the core area that you would consider up to Montgomery or Arlen Ryan Memorial Drive to High Street, Lincoln or Huntoon, and then over to Oliver. So within that core area, and then again in the Gateway project site, connecting over to the Purple Line Urban Winery and the parcels surrounding that. The reason why we're focusing this only in two specific areas is to kind of have it as a testing ground to see what the interest is from our business community in having street side dining. But in addition, the infrastructure tends to be already existing to support sidewalk dining within the downtown area. So it kind of just lends itself to trying this out in this area first. The other one would be private property dining. This is dining areas fully contained on private property, typically what you would see at, restaurant establishments in major areas. This is proposed to be allowed in any zoning district within the city. So not just our downtown area, but citywide, where restaurants and food service establishments are permitted. So this kind of just details where we're proposing the sidewalk dining areas. If you fall within the boundaries of the red, you essentially are allowed to utilize the existing sidewalk if there's sufficient width to maintain a pedestrian thoroughfare, or expand the sidewalk into on-street parking and take that away to create that dining area. In addition, here's the Gateway project site, including the Gateway, Purple Line Urban Winery, and then those other parcels right next to it, which are zoned to allow dining. Didn't want to go too much into the wording since I'm sure we'll discuss it, but I just wanted to show some examples. So this is the Woodstocks in Chico. This is an example of, kind of what staff would be expecting or hoping for. This is kind of, professionally done. We can see they removed on-street parking with the bulb outs right here on the corner. They have a clearly delineated dining area. You have trees and landscaping incorporated. And kind of going on to the next slide, taken from street view, you can see how it ultimately turned out. You have the awnings in a historic area, and it kind of just works together and is a very nice design. This other one is an example of private property dining. So this is right here in Oroville within the Provisions. This is their back courtyard area. This is an example of a dining area that is fully contained on private property. So we're not dealing with any impacts into the public right of way, no need for an encroachment permit or anything like that. In addition, this is kind of a It's hard to find an example because we don't have a lot of outdoor dining within Oroville along Oro Dam Boulevard or anywhere outside of downtown. So kind of an example of like, the Starbucks site. You have, extended pavement over here. You have the opportunity to put tables and chairs outside and to allow some dining in the outdoor area. So just some examples within our city and neighboring Chico. What we don't want is kind of this right here. What we have as an example, what we saw very much during the pandemic is those temporary K-rails or the lack of permanent improvements. It's not very sightly. It's not very safe. It just doesn't really evoke the image that we want to have within our downtown area. We want it to be an attractive environment and encourage people to go out and dine in these areas. In addition, you kind of look at this and you think, Europe and things like that. Partially the reason why we're looking to discourage this or prohibit this is there's a lack of a clearly delineated sidewalk area. People can go in and out of traffic very easily. There's not that clear separation from vehicle traffic, and it just doesn't look very, very clean. So it's eclectic, yes, but the main intent of this ordinance is to create permanent outdoor dining areas that are, clearly delineated and responsibility of the business owner to maintain, kind of acting as a defensible space. So if someone's in there that shouldn't be in there, it's a delineated area that we can control or the property owner can control or the business owner can control. So it allows that ability for the city to ensure these places are maintained, that they're secured, and that it contributes to an attractive environment. For now, I'll just kind of leave that at the presentation and open it up to any questions that we have. We can go through the ordinance. We're also proposing to amend the parking standards, setting up some new parking standards for our outdoor dining areas and exempting parking standards within our downtown, and then amending our commercial and mixed use land use district matrices to specify where outdoor dining would be allowed.
Do you know if there's still plans to develop the levee like north of the Chinese Temple and Rotary Park? Would that be included in this?
Yes, there are still plans to develop the levee. The Community Development Department or the city has gone through, there's been an approval for a Feather River Parkway and Trails Master Plan. We've held several community meetings to gather input. There are components within that plan that would allow for development like this on the levee, but more recreational amenities and not necessarily commercial development. So, but that still is, I think there are still areas that are allowed under the Arts, Cultural, and Entertainment District that was adopted 2014-15.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. What question did you have? Mm-hmm.
Right here.
Yes.
Restaurant there.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
But should a development be presented?
I mean, a restaurant be presented, or an al fresco independent of a restaurant be approved or proposed?
Well, it wouldn't fall within the perimeter that we're proposing here.
What?
It would be outside.
Mm-hmm. It would be,
Oh, I'm just talking about, from a planning standpoint. I mean, somebody can come in and request that boundary be changed. I mean, that's not in concrete. But there's no provision in this ordinance that would allow an al fresco independent of a restaurant. And then there's a standalone al fresco facility somewhere.
well, and being that the levee is zoned public, public quasi and parkland, that it's open to the public to recreate and dine and whatever they choose.
But an al fresco would not be allowed, right?
Well,
That would be in a different category. So the main intent of this ordinance is we're amending our commercial and mixed-use districts. The levy zoned open space and public quasi-public. So that does not fit within our land use matrix to allow, from a commercial standpoint, al fresco dining. This is supposed to be an accessory use for a restaurant or food service establishment, and that would not necessarily prevent the city from adding, sidewalk furniture and dining areas along the levee.
Yeah, I'm thinking of in France, they have frescoes that are independent of a restaurant. I mean, there's no inside restaurant facility. It's all
Right.
out on the sidewalk or out in the open. And I can see down the line, someone getting the bright idea that, gee, why do I have to have a restaurant? Why don't I just have the facility?
I'm thinking
I-
of the, I'm thinking of the Dinky Diner down in Clarksburg, which is kind of a permanent trailer with a table set up on the levee down there along the Sacramento River. The food truck ordinance that we have does not allow food trucks, or I think what you're calling al fresco, to just set up on public PQ land. So they're not currently allowed to set up on public land. So if that's what you're talking about, I think that's how we would interpret it, right, Connor?
Correct. Yeah. So we would default to that code when we're dealing with food trucks and things like that. The proposed ordinance does mention sidewalk seating areas, which are non-permanent improvements. So that last picture that I showed an example, like a European cafe where you just have tables and chairs out on the sidewalk or on the street, that would be an example of what we would be prohibiting or strongly discouraging if someone does get the bright idea and want to apply, say, for a use permit. Like, I really want to do this. That's something that our code that we're proposing would, in all sense, point towards denial and really discourage that type of use.
Do we have any anticipation of the property across the street having any dining?
this property?
Yeah. I know he wanted to close the street off and he talked about that sort of thing.
Yeah, as far as we know, that's still the intent, but we have not received any additional information from that property owner.
I know Grass Valley recently closed the street off and I imagine they do dining. I was just in Boise and they have a street closed off with a lot of restaurants that do dining also.
Okay.
So I guess that'd still be city property, but they are enclosed off streets.
So that would be something, again, that would come to Planning Commission and Council for approval, but could always be a consideration.
Okay, any other further questions of staff?
How easy is it to amend the boundary this applies to?
It would be fairly simple. We would go through the same zoning change process just to extend that boundary. It would only be amending the first section of the proposed ordinance. So as of right now, it's kind of like, let's test this out for a year. Is there even an appetite for some sidewalk dining within our downtown area before we stretch ourselves too thin? Because part of the thing is, we don't want to see sidewalk dining on, high traffic streets that are kind of inappropriate for it. And having it open to the entire city, we may see sidewalk dining on Table Mountain. Someone may try and do it on Oro Dam and go through Caltrans if they really wanted to. But kind of just making this our focus area. We can revisit this in a year, 2 years. We get high demand and see people maybe in South Oroville who want to utilize when that area gets improved for some sidewalk dining. But it should be a fairly simple process to amend the first section.
Okay, I appreciate that because I can just see it. We approve this and somebody buys the depot and wants to do outdoor dining and they're right outside the boundary. So if it's something that's easy to switch, then I'm not going to.
Did you have a specific suggestion as to how to change the boundary? Because the Planning Commission is at liberty to do so.
No, I don't.
Well, the depot's private property. Have a patio on it. Without a fresco.
Well,
Correct.
Just like the Union.
Right.
Yes, it would be on private property.
So that wouldn't apply. Or would it?
It wouldn't apply.
Yeah, unless you use a sidewalk.
Okay, this ordinance is dealing with the proper term al fresco, which is on the sidewalk, right?
No, he has a second section.
There's nothing controlling or saying somebody wants to put tables and so forth in their parking lot off the restaurant.
Well, then they would be reducing their, then they would be reducing the parking requirements
Well, yeah.
for that.
Yeah, but let's say they've got 20 parking stalls and they only need 10. Then they want to use up 3 or 4 of those right next to the building.
And that would be on their private property, as
Right.
long as they weren't,
That's not controlled or mentioned in here anywhere. Is that right?
That is under subsection E of the proposed ordinance. We have alfresco dining areas outside of the public right of way. So that does set up standards for those business owners in commercial and mixed use districts to propose alfresco dining on private properties such as their parking lot, underutilized landscaping, places like that.
But what I'm driving at is what is the requirements? Are they different than?
Application review and
Yeah,
submittal
I
requirement.
mean, is there application? Is what I picked up.
That's what he
Yes.
has.
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
they would have to require or ensure that that property owner was not going below that required parking.
right. Okay.
Correct.
'Cause I read that second, I didn't quite understand the application of it.
Yeah.
So it's only if they're taking parking up. If they have a patio,
Yeah.
no one can say anything what
Well,
they're
we've
gonna
got,
do
we've
with
got
their.
one right here at
Yeah.
the southeast corner of Montgomery and, what is it? Not Huntoon, Myers.
Myers, yes.
You know, it's on their patio. Well, that's al fresco, but it's on site, it's all on site. Is that controlled in some way in here?
It should be, yes, it should be within the ordinance under the subsection E if it's on private property. So kind of, do an example scenario. Applebee's right there on Feather River. They have a patio space out in the front. It's not fenced off. It's kind of just open. If they wanted to go ahead and propose to utilize that for outdoor dining, they would have to submit to the Development Review Committee showing how they're going to be fencing it off, whether they're serving alcohol within that area. And we'd have to analyze to make sure the parking is still provided on site. So a ratio is being proposed of 1 space for every 4 seats in an alfresco dining area that is outside of our downtown Oroville area. So that way we can ensure that parking is still provided because you are intensifying the use of the property. You are likely going to be attracting more people to your business. So we want to make sure that they're still providing those parking provisions.
But there's no use permit or minor use permit or anything else required for that, right?
No, it would be an administrative process reviewed and approved by the Development Review Committee.
That's what I'm driving at. Why isn't a minor use permit as opposed to just staff approval? The reason that having a use permit of whatever kind is it becomes a discussion in the public domain. The public gets to understand this is what's happening versus the staff just approving it. All of a sudden, there's a big hoopla and it goes to the council. People go to the council and say, what happened here? What did you do? You know, that happens in different kinds of land use situations. And I've been involved in one.
Yeah.
In Sacramento, ended up in a lawsuit. But that's kind of,
Well, that's why we're discussing the ordinance.
huh?
We're discussing Connor's ordinance, so we can go through all of that, right? When we get to that point and go item by item on suggestions that we have. But is this the
Correct,
time
yeah.
to do that right yet?
Yeah, no, times
We
anytime.
can go through it right now and go through any section you'd like. The main thing is we were trying to keep it at an administrative process with development review to review these applications because we don't want it to be a burden for our restaurant owners and
Right.
kind of be prohibitive to outdoor dining.
Exactly.
We want to encourage more of our business owners to do this. If they have to apply for use permit, which is going to be, $3,200 for an application fee with a public hearing, we're likely not going to be getting, applicants for outdoor dining within the city. Now, if it's a brand new building, so let's say, Dutch Bros is going to do an outdoor patio and it's going to be reviewed and approved by the planning commission because they needed the conditional use permit anyway for their drive-through. So it kind of goes through a hierarchy of review. If it's an existing establishment, in the case of the Applebee's or a business downtown, we'll keep it administrative so that way the costs are low. And as long as if they meet these, standards that are outlined within the ordinance, it's kind of a way of staff is okay with this. We feel comfortable to approve this because we have a clear criteria to ensure that it's going to look good, that it's going to meet the development standards that we're looking for, and the expectations of maintenance are going to be clearly outlined moving forward.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you've opened a public hearing or not, but we do have a speaker card.
I know, I'm trying to get the
Oh, okay.
interaction with the staff done first.
One of the,
And when we're finished questioning staff or whatever, then I'm gonna open it to, so I keep asking, are there any more questions of staff by the commissioners? Not? Okay, I'll open the hearing. Do we have anyone in the public that wants to make a,
Mr. Chairperson, there are one blue card speaker, and his name is Mike Troy Hender.
welcome?
and Mr. Trollinger is one of the instigators of this,
Instigators?
ordinance. He has been working with the city of Paris and has
I
suggested
think we
that.
could find a better word than instigator.
Encourager.
Oh, I'm used to it.
Encourager
I'm
or
used to it.
foresight
There's a
or,
lot worse names than that.
anyway, welcome.
Hello,
You wanna turn, there you go.
is it on?
Yep.
It's on there.
My name is Mike Trollender. I'm the urbanist that comes and goes in downtown Oroville. I'm very happy to see this come this quickly. Usually, it took me 5.5 years to get Chico to adopt their ordinance, and these guys have done this in less than a year, so I'm totally amazed. Ventura took about 6 years. So this is fast, and I do appreciate it. I didn't see this till last night. For some reason, I wasn't involved in the workshops and the other things involved, and I didn't run across this until I started scanning I scanned for every meeting. And so I haven't looked at this very closely, but there's 5 things here that I think are really critical. And the first one is fencing. And the problem with fencing is that the way the code's written is that mugshots, who puts a table out every day, it won't be allowed. They just put a table out on the sidewalk. The same way with Shake Tea, who I did their design, and they won't, by this code, they're not allowed to put a table and chairs out in front of their store, or Unicorn, the ice cream shop. And the idea that you need to put a fence in order to have an ice cream in front of your shop is kind of crazy. The other problem with fencing is that the cool thing about the sidewalk is that is your circulation. That's your path of travel. As soon as you install a fence, now you have to have 2 paths to travel. You have to have a path of travel on the sidewalk, and then you have to have a path of travel inside of the fence. So it reduces the dining area by a lot. So my suggestion here is to rethink the idea of fencing because unfenced dining can be very elegant, can be done very well, and it needs to be programmed so that everybody follows the directions. But it's kind of critical here because what we're trying to do is to encourage people to put people sitting in the sidewalk, and we need to lower those constraints. And fencing is one of those things that are gonna be a hardship. Fencing is related to alcohol also, and I would really love to see Oroville adopt in the downtown district a beer and wine unfenced code. So you could have beer and wine on the sidewalk in front of an establishment with table service. And then if you have spirits, you have to have a fence. So I'd love to see that looked at. We do that all across the United States. It's pretty standard. In Chico, we weren't able to do it because Chico they have a big alcohol problem with the university. So we are already.
Time.
Can we extend his time?
Yes, how do I extend the time? I just, huh?
Just say it.
Extend the time, give them another 10 minutes.
No,
And I have five. If you ever go to Winners, there's a Pewter Creek Cafe, and there's a big pizza oven on the sidewalk. It's been there for years and years. I've been working 3 years now to put a pizza place in downtown Oroville. We have a building in, my client has a building in escrow, and we're planning to put wood-fired pizza on the sidewalk, like in Winners. But here in this code, it's not even, it's just disallowed. So what we'd love to see would be the idea that we'll consider it so that we can bring our consideration to you for approval. And so it would be nice to back up and look at that also.
Yeah, that's the France way of doing it. They actually.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
They prepare the food right out there.
There's all parts of the world, they do that, right.
Chestnuts.
But
Yep, I was gonna say roasting chestnuts, exactly. Crepes.
My number three really is when you take, I worked on a lot of downtown Chico. When you take parking, you want to be really careful. We're not coding in how much parking they can take. I really think that you need to code in no more than 2 spaces can be taken for an operator. The other is that I think you need a permanent code for corners where it's permanent hardscape, we call it. And then when it's in line, when it's between the corners, that you could put in a semi-permanent outdoor dining so that it could be removed down the road. But it has to be done at a standard that is high. And the reason for that is because things change. If someone's going to put in $100,000 for outdoor dining, all hardscape, and then they move, and then we're left with a hardscape that's taking up parking that's not being used, and they actually become kind of eyesores. And so I think we should back up and look at that again. I did talk about the alcohol in related to fencing is that please visit that idea of beer, wine, unfenced, and fencing when you have spirits. And the fifth one really is path of travel. In front of Provisions on Montgomery, it's really quite elegant to push all the outdoor dining up against the traffic. And the path of travel is along the buildings. And so what would happen along Montgomery is there'd be some planters built to screen the cars, and the operator would, and that would be probably a fence kind of operation, but we want to be careful about how are we allowing paths of travel? These have to be up against the building, or can we separate the dining from the storefront and the circulation go in front of the store? So those are my 5 areas. I have a lot more, but I haven't looked at it close enough, and I'll type it up and get it to staff. But for today's meeting, those were my 5 areas of concern. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions of him? No questions?
This is the Winners. It didn't print, but that's the Winners. There's 2 of them there. This shows the wood-fired pizza in the right-of-way.
Great breakfast there, by the way.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, right. And the place across the street's good too.
Okay, close the hearing and discussion with the staff then on the project. I have my 2 cents, I'll get in at the end, but actually probably a nickel. No discussion?
Oh, yeah, no,
Well,
we're waiting for permission.
Yeah.
I just gave you a permit.
What he says makes sense. Could we do something to allow less tables, businesses with 1 or 2 tables outside that are grab and go? Anything similar like that?
That is something that we could look into a little bit further. I know off the top of my head, the city of Tustin adopted regulations late last year, and it did allow for that outdoor seating. So you kind of see in the definitions, I did include outdoor seating as temporary dining areas, non-permanent improvements can be returned to original unimproved state. So essentially all we would have to do is expand on that definition and include a subsection, probably F, just outlining, dining, limiting it to 2 tables, 2 chairs, something like that, and provisions that it must be secured, brought inside after business hours. I do particularly like the city of Tustin's example. If that's something the commission would like to explore, I can add that in as a section.
For me, when I think about what we're regulating here, I just want to be really careful because the restaurants around here, I have never seen them abuse anything. I see tables outside. I even see our shops have benches outside. I know that restaurants are the most regulated industries, maybe second to medical. So I want to be extremely careful about encouraging and not discouraging and not adding undue burden on them. That's one of my big goals. So I would like to see this really lightened up so that it was a lot easier for them. And I had a cafe on Vashon Island, a little coffee shop, and when I got it, we had tables right out front, and then we had tables in front of the little shops on either side of us, and it just was a beautiful relationship. People sit in front, they look in the shop, they go back and forth. I don't remember having to ask anyone. I didn't have to draw a diagram. We just kept it beautiful. That was our goal. I mean, at a restaurant, all your profit is in the bottom of the soup pot. So every single penny counts for you. So personally, I feel like something like we see at Mugshots and we did during COVID in front of, it was Exchange then, just pop a couple tables out, put the chairs there, the staff is on it. I don't think they need to have a trash can. They've got bus service. I definitely don't like the fence idea, even also for a ADU compliance, because I really think we do have kind of handicap friendly. I'd like to see the sidewalks better, but I just would love to see people in wheelchairs not have to navigate going around a fence. Yeah, I definitely love Mike's suggestion. I would love to be able to have beer and wine because that was something at my cafe. We'd have events and I didn't have a fence up, so I wasn't really allowed to let anyone have a beer on the front porch. And they'd always ask me, and I would just say, well, if the liquor control board comes, we'll just, say I didn't know you had the beer out there. Because it just made absolutely no sense why they couldn't just have that beer on the front. So for me, I would like to see this looked at in a much really, I just want to deregulate it a little bit. I want to make it super easy, super encouraging, so that people do this all downtown, and we've just got the pictures you showed. We meet all that criteria. We've got this flourishing, clean area, and I just don't feel like restaurant owners are apt to clutter up and make the front of their restaurant trashy in any way.
The fascinating thing to me about al fresco is the socialization that goes on. It becomes, they get together and they're talking, they interact and everything else. It's not like inside the restaurant, for some reason, you don't have that. But outside, you have the ambience, atmosphere around, and it becomes a social interaction place. And that's what I like about it. I like to go and sit down and perfect stranger next to you start talking, and it's a social thing. And I agree totally that it's way too strict. Right? We need to. I think staff needs to take this back and maybe get this gentleman in and get some more input. But
Yeah, and
anyway, that's my 2 cents.
And I think, a unique challenge we have in Oroville to keep in mind, of course, is that we have narrow rights of way downtown. There's not a lot of space to have multiple traffic ways I'm still trying to conceptualize how this is going to look in our landscape, whether there are a lot of rules or not a lot of rules. So It's just a reminder that's just something that we have to keep in mind our limited space when we're planning this. And I don't have the solution. This is kind of outside my area of knowledge to make recommendations, but
So looking at this example, Connor, of this one on page 511, I guess with, like on Montgomery Street, I don't think you can have outdoor dining along Montgomery right there where provision is everything without a small 36-inch fence or something along the curb. Cars come down that street quickly. I think there needs to be a buffer, and that's a wide sidewalk. If there's a way to, I guess, how this can be structured dependent upon the location, like from Montgomery Street to Myers to Bird, Huntoon, whatever. Those are different streets, different traffic flows, different traffic patterns. I do think on Montgomery, you need something like that to have a fence to separate that, because car jumps the curb, hits someone, city gets sued, restaurant gets sued, everybody gets sued. I don't think it's gonna interfere with the path of travel if you have a fence right there on the curb, just to buffer the car from the curb. I don't know if there's, like I said, if there's a way to, depending on the location, what you would require for a buffer.
Yeah. So when I heard what Mike said with the separating the dining area from being adjacent to the business and not having buffers and things like that, we set these regulations. It's always hard. We're dealing with a very diverse community here, a diverse area, and you set these regulations kind of for the worst and hope for the best. And I would love if Brian Wong did every outdoor dining space, but we can't say down the road 5-10 years that we're going to get a Brian Wong proposing an outdoor dining space. We may get someone proposing the craziest idea you've ever heard, and we don't have the regulations in place to otherwise regulate that. And so when we had early discussions internally among staff, kind of the consensus was we wanted to keep these dining areas adjacent to the businesses, so immediately in front of them, because we didn't want servers and patrons crossing the path of travel, an active pedestrian area to get to a dining space. So in this case, I don't anticipate, and I wouldn't recommend having a dining area right up against Montgomery Street, because it is a highly traveled area. Pushing that pedestrian zone further out towards Montgomery, having the dining areas closest to the restaurant. Part of this is, we're setting standards that are hopefully broad enough, and having it go to our DRC to have that, discretion to provide some leeway on what we want to see. Do we, want to see maybe a higher barrier? We can set up the ordinance to perhaps remove the barriers. But again, as I alluded to earlier, the main thing is we want to try and create clearly delineated dining areas without having, sidewalks fully taken over by tables and chairs, and keeping it contained so a business does not grow beyond their capabilities to serve and provide the internal facilities. So that was a topic of concern in our early development review committee meetings, was if a restaurant proposes a big outdoor dining area, are there restroom facilities of adequate size and capacity to handle this? That's something we saw early on with the union, when they only had 2 restroom facilities and a big outdoor patio area in indoor dining. So how can we prevent that from happening? How can we clearly delineate and kind of, I don't want to say restrict, but in all sense, we are restricting the size and scope of where an outdoor dining can go. So the intent and hope of this is we still will allow staff and our DRC members some objectivity and subjectivity, in that case, subjectivity in what they want to see, but setting some objective guidelines and standards to follow. So it gets difficult. We can't go necessarily street by street and say on Montgomery, we're expecting this, on High Street, we're expecting this, and then on Feather River, we're expecting this. That starts turning into basically a very long code and kind of difficult, but
And
it's not
designed by staff. Yeah.
exactly.
So
Is there a one-size-fits-all solution to this?
Well,
The-
you
the
have
main-
a 6-foot
the main-
Because
pathway.
I don't think there can be.
No, and the main hope of this is, in all honesty, not every restaurant is going to be able to provide outdoor dining.
Correct.
It's just something that's going to come up. But the main hope of this is to set up enough pathways forward for a restaurant owner to propose outdoor dining. Now, if we do add in the sidewalk seating without having the barriers and limiting it to maybe 2 tables and chairs, that opens it up a little bit more for mug shots and for, Shake Tea to have some dining outside. But, those are things that we just have to make it broad enough, but ensure that we are still protecting, public, protecting, the city, because if you are dining on the sidewalk, it is at the end of the day still city property.
Yeah.
All the way from, like, if we look at this picture here of provisions, that is all public from right where the tile ends in provisions entry to the curb.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, but you did say in there, in my mind, it's pretty clear, there needs to be a 6-foot pathway that can be unobstructed. So that to me seemed very clear. So if you're not able to do that, or if you can only put 2 tables and 2 little chairs, that's all you get to do because you've got to keep that pathway open. So that to
Correct.
me is very clear. And my other point is, these are restaurant owners, they're entrepreneurs. We don't need to overthink this for them. They have a vision. They want this to succeed, believe me, more than the city wants this to succeed. I hate to over-regulate this. I really believe we can trust them to make good decisions as long as we say there's this pathway, just keep it very simple. You don't have to have a trash can. We know you're gonna pick up your trash. It has to be clean.
Yes.
I do a lot of outdoor dining, and I want to explain that the reason you push the dining out to the edge, and there's a way to put a barrier, not a fence, but a barrier between the traffic, and there's no parking along Montgomery except for a couple turnouts, is because the tree and all the stuff that is in the path of travel is to the outside edge. And so you want to push the dining when you can between the trees, and Montgomery's perfect for that because the dining really belongs to the traffic side and the path of travel along the edge of the building, because every 45 feet there's a tree and there's something else and there's another gizmo, and tables can work through all that kind of stuff. When you push the dining up against the building, then the circulation has to go around the trees and around all the other things up to the edge. And it really is, you really do have to go block by block. There really is not, you need to open it up so that you're satisfying the things that you want to satisfy. Your 6-foot path of travel, just give them the rules and let them just figure out how they're going to do it. Don't give them all the how we're going to do it. Give them the rules. Thank you.
So, we do keep talking about the 6-foot path of travel. Now, the main thing is to keep in mind ADA requirements are only a 3-foot sidewalk. So I did propose a little bit wider, well, double the size, partially because, if our downtown area, for example, we do have a lot of special events and things like that. I've walked on narrow sidewalks. Half the time you end up in the street when you're walking against someone else. So if we have a very active, and this is thinking long-term, a very active downtown area, we want to make sure we're not limiting our infrastructure to be too small for the future growth of our downtown. Now, it is, we can massage that a little bit. We can shrink it down a little bit more. If you want to do just the 3-foot ADA, then so be it. That number is not set in stone, as long as it doesn't go below 3.
That's pretty tight, I think,
I
3
like
foot.
6.
Is there a way that we can sort of maybe work on this a little more? Maybe we can, instead of, I don't know if tabling is the right word, but maybe have Mike put together some more information. It's Mike, right? Yeah, Mike put together some more information, maybe bring a little illustrations in or something. Again, not to muddy it or make it complicated, but you can't just leave it up to restaurant owners to just do what they want to do, because you'll have a complete hodgepodge of mess. You got to have some sort of
rules.
You got to have a guideline
I'm
that
fine
they
with
got to
rules.
follow. And I don't think one street fits all. I don't think that can happen. I could be wrong, but the streets are different. I think if you can have up to 2 or 3 tables, in front of mug shops, no big deal. But if you're gonna have, you know, a dozen or so, you gotta have a little bit different rules for that. That's my thought. I don't know. I love outdoor dining. I think it's a great thing. I think if Brian didn't have outdoor dining at the union, we wouldn't have a union, right? I think Ethan's with their outdoor dining is excellent. You need that. Even Jen's Cafe has 3 or 4 of those tables out in the front of hers. It's not the best design, but it's outdoor.
Even Grande Burger.
Grande?
Yeah, Grande, they have like.
Oh, yeah,
just
right,
saying,
exactly.
having that
So yes,
outdoor
outdoor dining is an excellent thing to have. But it can also be done wrong. So I don't think it should be, although we should think about it, I think it should be planned a little bit more. And then just have a broad box and then let DRC and staff sort of steer it per project, if that's possible. I don't know.
It was mentioned earlier that perhaps there was a reason to have a use permit, perhaps in some instances where the planning commission actually reviews this. And I know Connor addressed it with the cost factor and you know, the flexibility factor. Was that satisfactory? Or are there instances where this planning commission wants to see a project?
You're asking me a question?
I'm asking the whole.
Well, I mean, I guess all use permits are expensive.
Expensive.
I mean, I don't know if this can be, you know, for this type, unless it's strictly across the board, use permits are, you know, $3,000 across the board for everybody, for everything. Or in this situation, for outdoor dining, it can be included in their original application or something.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Staff's usually pretty good at seeing the complexity of a project and steering it towards planning commission, even if it's not required.
Is it possible for the planning commission to act as a DRC as a whole?
You'd have to.
That's a
agendize
Brown
it,
Act
wouldn't you?
question. I think not.
Yeah,
Why not?
because you guys would be in violation of the Brown Act.
What?
Because it wouldn't be a true agendized meeting of the planning commission. You would be acting secondarily as a design or development review committee.
Yeah.
So,
Your board cannot have more than 3 people meet at one time without violating the Brown Act, unless it's an agendized planning commission meeting.
No, it would be agendized as a DRC meeting. In other words, it's
I believe the
public
DRC
notice,
is
and
spelled
we're having a
out in the-
DRC meeting at the end of the planning commission to look at 3 different restaurants or, you know, whatever.
I would even venture to say that it would be more of a historic advisory committee meeting.
It could, staff report or something, because DRC, you're also gonna have to get the building official here and the fire department and everybody at this hour.
Well, and the DRC is
That's
spelled
fine.
out
They
in
go to the
municipal code.
Regular DRC anyway. What's the difference?
The time of night,
Huh?
the time of day.
Well, and the clerk is correct as well. The DRC is spelled out in the municipal code as being a body of 3 planning commissioners.
I think we could come up with clear rules and still give the restaurants what we want, what the goals of this whole ordinance are. Encourage them, help them, not make it cumbersome, but yet make it work with guidelines.
Well, let me make this recommendation that we go back to staff, meet with Mr. Trollinger, put together some more thoughts to reduce the restriction or the burden on the restaurant owners and the property owners, and come back with some additional amendments or updates for you
Would the
to
commissioners
review.
be willing to have a study session on this?
Chairperson Durling, you could request an ad hoc committee be formed. It's a short-term committee, so that 2 or 3 commissioners could be appointed to guide the process.
Well,
I see you cringing.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that this is complex enough to need an ad hoc committee or something. I think maybe staff could follow the direction that we've heard tonight and come up with a revised proposed ordinance for the next planning commission meeting.
I think Don's idea was good. Can we do that?
I like it too.
How do we make a motion for that?
You just said it.
All right.
And if I could be allowed to, I think, clarify what I was trying to say earlier on, I'd like a little bit more of a conception about what this is going to look like in downtown Oroville with our narrow streets and sidewalks. I mean, I don't imagine a lot of our folks are going to be proposing to take out parking and build sidewalks in order to fill out
Yeah.
parking. I have this image here that's on page 511 of the agenda that this isn't going to happen in downtown.
I think
I just want a better idea to conceptualize what we're thinking this is going to look like.
Something else
would
we can
help.
do is take pictures of our current coffee shops and what the one table in the front looks like as an example for the ordinance. And we can task Mr. Musler with finding some other examples of outdoor dining that might be similar or
That
to what we
resemble us.
have
Yeah.
Yeah, from here.
in our
Yes.
downtown.
Do you know if the Paris Cafe has a conceptual design that we'd be able to see then? That would probably help a little bit.
Staff actually has a conceptual design for that, which involves taking out the 2 parking spots on the corner and using the corner to put seating on both sides of that corner.
And that also could be an example put in this.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Which is fine, because we have the parking lot across the street, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which I think is
Because I mean, there's one
more
block.
than adequate.
Yeah, because there's one block of Montgomery with the wide sidewalk. Yeah, I think we can conceptualize how that
Yeah.
would play out here. It's just, it's our narrow streets that where we do want to bring in more traffic. It's more intimate. It's,
Right.
how does this work? Okay, thanks.
So do I make a motion to,
Refer it back to staff. I'm sure staff's been taking notes, right?
I think I have enough to go off of. I see what direction we want to go. Part of it is I appreciate all of you guys giving me insight. We all have different viewpoints on this, and so it's very helpful. You can only get so much. I apologize for being so far away and not being able to go out and take photos of some of these existing establishments. I'm happy our downtown street view was finally updated this month. So June 2023, we have some new Google Street View images, but living down here, everything is master planned. And so everything is perfect in its perfect way.
send photos?
No character.
And so every example I could find out, I just recently went to the Circle in Orange, and I was hoping to see amazing examples of downtown sidewalk dining and things like that. And it was absolutely the worst examples I could find. So I didn't take any pictures.
Historic
Connor.
old town.
We'll take
Go
pictures
to
for you,
downtown
Connor.
Fullerton.
Yeah.
Go to downtown Fullerton. Put that as
That's
your
on
homework.
that's on the
Why don't you
next
come and
part
wait
of
in
my
the parking
list.
lot
So I've
for
been looking at so many
15,
different
20
places
minutes?
trying to figure it out. Every time I go out, you guys trust me. I'm thinking of this
Wait
alfresco
in the
dining
parking
ordinance.
lot
And
for
Laguna
about
and Huntington
25
Beach.
minutes or so.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, look up Paso Robles. I know it's not close to you,
And,
but they have a
All right,
small
just
downtown
wait
as
out
well.
there and I'll
I have a
get there when I
great,
can.
and it's an old town.
Yeah.
All right,
But I have my notes
Is that
down. I
okay?
think I see what direction we want to go. I will touch bases
Okay,
with
see
Mike, get some examples from him,
Okay.
and we'll make amendments to this proposed ordinance as necessary, and hopefully return to you guys, sometime soon.
Awesome.
Thank you, Connor.
Thank
We
you,
do-
Connor.
We
No
do,
one-
we do appreciate your work, Connor.
Yes, we do. But
Let's-
we don't like that you don't live here. We wanted you here.
We'll
It
woo
is
him
tough.
back.
I've never been in this city hall past 6 o'clock, so I think I got kicked off the internet. I'm now on my work computer, so
Well, this is very typical of a brand-new ordinance. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no criticism or anything
Yeah,
else.
not at all.
Staff takes its best shot, and that's why we bring it to the planning commission, and you have all the input. And then staff takes the second best shot, and sometimes even goes the third best shot.
How long did our sign ordinance take? 6
I don't
years?
wanna- What, 2 years?
Yeah.
Sign ordinance took forever. The fence ordinance took way longer than it probably should have, but you know,
The
just how it
bottom line
goes.
is, the bottom line is, we are going to have an ordinance
Yes.
for this.
It's all
We
success
are.
at the end of the day.
That's what's awesome.
Yep.
I thought I made the motion, did I not?
So we don't necessarily need a motion unless you feel you need one, because if you're just referring it back to staff, there's no action taken.
Okay,
Perfect.
perfect. Bring it back. Excellent.
Everybody agree? We have concurrence? Okay. Staff, you think you're gonna bring it back at the next planning commission meeting? I mean, that seems, that's fine. I'd like to have it in advance so I have time to read it instead of 2 days before the planning commission.
We'll do our best.
Yeah.
We'll do our best. We'll coordinate with Mike. We'll talk to a couple other folks. We'll get Connor some pictures, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, just zoom the heck out of it. And get some input, you know? You got a guy here that's very familiar with this kind of stuff. Okay. We'll go to the next item, which is reports and discussions. Commission reports, historic advisory reports, and staff reports. Any reports on any one of those items?
Does any commissioner have a report?
Nope, I don't.
I just have a question on, I know Daniel's not here, so then our historic preservation award, will we be hearing an update on that? Like, and then you're not gonna be here, so I'm just gonna look at Wes.
We'll have an update, we'll have a meeting before.
Okay.
And an update at the next planning commission meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
I've just one thing here. I noticed that we have a new staff member here. I don't know if this person, if they were introduced before I walked in, or.
So this is Nancy. She is an intern in the clerk's department and learning kind of how to run the ropes in the event that I'm not here. Specifically, I will not be at next month's planning commission meeting, and so I wanted to kind of get her used to the equipment and the process.
Hi, Al.
Okay, anything else anybody want to bring up?
Yeah, there's a couple of items. The branding process is almost at its conclusion. The branding or new Oroville brand. We have been making presentations to our tourism entities, to our department heads, and we'll have a presentation for you folks at the next planning commission meeting about what the new Oroville brand is intended to be and how we're going to roll it out and everything else. A lot of people are liking it and are excited about it. We figured that tonight's meeting was going to be long enough so that you wouldn't want to hang around and hear any more on that.
You said brand, and my mind went back to
The cattle.
the cowboy time of branding cattle.
Well, we're all going to be having that tattooed on
That is
us.
a related
That's one
concept,
of the
yes.
recommendations.
There we go.
There is a.
Secondly, because Dawn is leaving, because Connor is remote, because Danny has left, we have now a new contract with Interwest, which is a planning consulting firm that has 28 planners that we can pull and help us out. So it won't just be me. We'll have additional planning support to help us with projects and environmental work and ordinances and such as well. So
In the interim.
in the interim,
Well, because we're trying to hire permanent.
yes.
Well, Dawn has volunteered to come every other day, I think, didn't she? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have offered to help where I can, when I can.
And for the next DRC meeting and the next Planning Commission meeting, the DRC meeting will be July 13th, Thursday at 3:30. The Planning Commission, July 27th. There's only one project that's really confirmed, and that's a subdivision called Grand Acres. That is a 24-unit proposed subdivision north of the Feather Ranch that we've been discussing tonight. And it's going to be a manufactured home community if it's approved. So you'll be having that to consider at the next meeting.
Okay. Nothing else?
I just want to thank you all again. This proclamation came as a complete surprise to me. It has truly been a joy working with all of you. I get to work with you some more going forward. But thank you. I've enjoyed every minute being here, and I hope that I still can be of assistance in the future.
Well, every word in that is sincerely meant
Thank you.
from all of us, so. All right, that ends the meeting.
Daniel, I didn't even realize you left.
Daniel left. I know, that was so quick.
Newport Beach. Oh, yeah.